live from the beautiful Taksim Square in Istanbul, and we've got some special guests on the line with us. We've got Josip Zilic, who's head of operations at Euro Football Star. We've also got Simon Hill, and we've also got Kew Jaliens. How's everyone this afternoon?
Very good, thanks, Ray.
Very well.
Terrific, thank you. Now, we've got a couple of questions we're going to throw at our special guests, Simon and Kew. We're just going to first pick up with Simon. So we originally last spoke to Simon about just over a year ago when we come live from the Champions League final in Paris. And just for a bit of an update, we've got probably quite a few, many more thousand followers since we last had you on, Simon. So I was just wondering if it was okay, because we've got followers overseas in Europe and also back in Australia. If you could just give them maybe a little 1 minute background of your career and where you started and what you currently do in current day.
Well, I'm from Manchester, as you can tell by the City tracksuit. I'm a big City fan, so I'm delighted we're in the final again. I grew up in northwest England, started my journalistic career in 1991, which makes me feel very old, working for radio stations in the UK. I eventually worked for the BBC for about a decade, went on to work for ITV, various other places, including Sky Sports as a freelancer, and then came to Australia in 2003 to work for SBS Television, where I worked for 3 years. And then I went to Fox Sports, where I was chief football commentator for 14 years. And since 2021, I've been with Channel 10. So I call the A-League games and the Socceroos and Asian Champions League and all that sort of stuff. And I have a radio show on SEN as well. So that's the short version.
Amazing, Simon. Thank you for that background. And obviously, by the big smile on your face, I can tell that you're a Manchester City fan at the moment.
Yes, very happy with life at the moment.
I am very begrudgingly happy for you. And yeah, I am not a Manchester City fan. I have to wear the scarf because I lost the bet. So unfortunately, but I've got some toilet paper if we run out in the hotel. This is perfect.
What, you got a United scarf as well, have you?
No, I wish. So the same question for yourself, Kew. If you can give us a little bit for our listeners and followers, many people know who you are, but also for those that don't, if you could give us a bit of a background in your involvement in football.
So I was born in the Netherlands. I've played professional football for about 23 years. Started my journey in the Netherlands, Sparta Rotterdam, Willem II, AZ Alkmaar. Won a championship with AZ in the Netherlands. Then moved to Poland. Played in Poland for 2.5 years. Played for Wisla Kraków. Won the Polish championship with them as well. Then I moved to Australia. Came to Australia. Played for the Newcastle Jets. And I finished off my career at Melbourne City.
Amazing.
So
he's being very modest there. He's being very modest there, Ray. He played at a World Cup and marked Leo Messi, if you don't mind.
I was just going to mention that because we actually had it brought to our attention that not only did you play against Lionel Messi in a World Cup, but you've also played in Champions League games as well. Is that correct, Hugh?
Yeah, so I played Champions League for 3 different teams.
Amazing.
And I played over 50 EuroLeague games as well.
That's amazing, mate. It's I couldn't believe it when I first met you for the first time a few weeks ago in Australia that we had such a hidden gem. And your involvement in football, I believe, should be way higher in the game of Australia. And yeah, I think we need to unearth this diamond and make the FFA aware of who you are and what you do. And I think we need to get you working up in that technical department. But we'll see how we go with that one.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate it.
First question I've got for you, myself and Josip, I've got a couple of questions for you. And I'm going to start off. The first question is for Simon. Now, one of our programs that we launched about a year ago, Simon, it's called the Pro Player Pathway. And we discovered an area in football in Australia that we don't believe there's a clear and concise pathway for football players in Australia, especially if they want to go overseas as well. But we also educate and engage the students and players that sometimes, well, football won't work out for you, but there is other opportunities in football, whether it be as a sports scientist, a physio, a coach. or maybe one day even being a journalist or a presenter like yourself. The question I've got for you is, do you think it's a good way to go to stay involved in football, and some of the opportunities that you've been offered over the years? Are you happy with the choices that you made, and do you think it's a good route for people who are heavily involved in playing but maybe don't cut it as a pro to go into other areas?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'd say that in life generally, to be honest, it's always good to have a backup plan. Although I didn't have one, to be fair. I always wanted to work in football, and I knew very early on that I wasn't going to be good enough to play professionally. So, you know, I made it my business to try and do the next best thing. But, you know, certainly it's good to have something up your sleeve in case it doesn't work out, because obviously the fallout rate in terms of, you know, young kids trying to make it as professional players, and Kew will probably be able to speak better about this than I will, but it's huge. You know, it's only a very select few that get to the very top and are able to earn a decent living out of the game as a player. So it's worth exploring those other avenues, definitely. You know, in my year when I had, I was going to say off from football. I wasn't off from football, but I wasn't in full-time employment. You know, I experimented with an awful lot of different things, still related to journalism, but I did podcasts, and I did ground announcing, and hosted shows online, and did all sorts of different things. And, you know, it was interesting to learn different skills, and to find different ways of earning money, and, you know, putting food on the table. We all got to do it. And at the moment, you know, as you can tell by my grey hair, I'm probably coming towards the end of my career. And I've just started doing a leathercraft course to make wristbands. So,
Oh, wow.
You know, it's completely different. There you go. There's one of them. So, you know, it's always good to have a backup plan, because, you know, things don't always work out, particularly as a footballer. You can get an injury as well, which can stuff you.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great, and some good feedback for some of our players that we've got tuning in. Now, Kew, we've got one for you, and this is probably a relevant one for those players who are aspiring. We've recently got 10 or 11 players that we've got opportunities for over in Europe. And Kew, we're just going to ask you a question in relation to playing at the high level games like World Cups and Champions League. So for our players who are preparing down that journey, and are going to, hopefully some of them will experience play professional football, how do you prepare as a professional player for playing in front of such big crowds, and how do you deal with nerves and stuff? Could you maybe give some of our listeners a little bit of advice around that, if any of them are lucky enough to make it?
Yeah, so your preparation, like it's not just about the big games. It has to be a lifestyle. So you got your proper diet. You need to know when you need your rest, like afternoon sleeps. It just becomes a lifestyle. So when it becomes a lifestyle, the big games are just an add-on. And with the big games, like for me, I had a chat today about it as well. My non-negotiables, like for me, every day I start at nil. I start at zero, and I'm very grateful to be awake and to have a blessed day. And from there, like I just get ready and focus for the games. So my focus is just on winning. Every time I cross that line, it's just about winning the game, and having that focus and mentality to do so. And that has been my best preparation, because when you cross that line with the mentality to win, you are very focused and sharp to start every game.
That's amazing, Kew. Yeah, that's one of the things that we speak to our players. If you fail to prepare to fail. And I think what you've just said in a nutshell there is preparation's key for everything that you want to do with your football career. Now, I believe Josip's got a question for Simon. Josip, do you want to fire your question for Simon?
This isn't the official question, Simon, but will you be at Coogee Beach Markets with those bracelets you talked about earlier?
Yeah, mate, if I can flog a few, absolutely. Yeah.
I'll line up and get a couple. One
Good
for
man.
each wrist. That's all right. It's funny enough, we mentioned preparation with Kew, and in terms of a player mentality towards preparation and what they undertake to get themselves on the ground. my question directed to yourself would be about yourself, the investigation you have to do and sort of research you need to do. Tell us about your preparation when you want to speak to someone notable and you want to make sure you make a good impact with your interview questions.
Well, in terms of preparation for commentating games, I don't shirk on that. It's probably similar in some ways to a footballer's training during the week. You put in your hard yards during the week and you deliver it on the Saturday or the Sunday. So I'll make sure I don't skimp on any of the preparation. It's the same for an A-League game as it is for a World Cup final. You make sure you do your research. You make sure you know as much as you possibly can about the teams, about the players, about the coaches, about the formation they play, about any injuries, their league table position, etc., etc. So, if I want to get extra information, then I will pick up the phone and speak to the coach or the press officer, who normally has a pretty good handle as to what's going on at the club. In the A-League at least, obviously I'm pretty fortunate enough to be able to know most of those people. So it's only a text message or a quick phone call, and I can normally get the information I want. If I'm doing a game that involves overseas teams, I am calling Australia against Argentina, for example, in a few days' time. So I've already started my research on Argentina. I won't be able to go to the press conference, unfortunately, because it's in Beijing, but I will probably speak to an Argentine journalist over the next week or so and, try and get some semblance of information as to how they might play, what's in the manager's mind. So you do as much as you possibly can. And again, just to echo what Kew said, it's the same as being a footballer. If you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail.
Yeah, good. That's good synergy in the messaging there between the both of you, whether it be sports media or in practice as an athlete as well.
Yeah, same process.
That's good. Could I extend my question out to Kew then, please, Ray?
Yes, go for it. Thank you, Josip.
Thank you. Kew, we share a common contact that's played football with you over the years, and Joey Didelica, who played with you at RZL.
Yeah, Big Joe.
We're both at North Geelong. He's been very passionate about the junior development over there, and he's making fantastic progress with a lot of the young lads. So I had a chat with him recently about you coming on board to Euro Football Star. So yes. Anyway, what that really sort of entails about with Joey is because he's so big on foundational skills. I guess the question to yourself is, throughout the course of a professional career as a footballer, how often and how much time is spent on revisiting foundational skills to make sure you have that sharpness out on that edge?
That's a everyday thing, every day. Like your basic principles, your passing, left and right passing, scanning. It has to become a habit. So when you're on the pitch, you don't think about what you need to do. You already know it. You got the muscle memory. You've done it over and over again. You do the same. You do it individually. Then you do it with pressure. So it's an everyday thing. And it never stops. If you want to be the best or want to play at the highest level, you have to revisit it every day.
Yeah, an important message for the young athletes that we work with at Euro Football Star, and I'm glad to hear it that it does continue along the pathway with yourself as you get through your professional career down the track too. Over to you, Ray.
Yep.
Brilliant, guys. So next question's for Simon, and I want you to take your Manchester hat off with this one and do it as a neutral if you can. It's a two-pronged question, Simon. Where do you think the game is going to be won or lost on Saturday, and what is your overall score prediction and why?
Well, obviously, I'm hoping Manchester City win it. We've waited a long time for it. Where's it going to be won or lost? Look, to be honest, the top games are normally won and lost in midfield. The team that is organised, they can get the supply lines to their more creative players. Overall, I think, 1-11, obviously it's a squad game these days, but I think man for man, Manchester City have a superior squad. They've got this sort of individuals that can influence big games, particularly Kevin De Bruyne, particularly Erling Haaland. If Inter can't, lock up that service to Haaland, then he could have a profitable night on Saturday. But Inter have got players that can hurt City as well. Particularly Lautaro Martinez, I think is a terrific footballer. So I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for City, but I do think if they can control the pattern of the game, which they're very adept at doing, City, they put their foot on the throat of opposition teams, even really good teams, and make them look ordinary. Then ultimately the quality shines through. You earn your right to play, and then your quality takes over. And obviously, I hope that's the case on Saturday. Of course, City can have an off day. Doesn't happen very often, but if it does, then Inter is certainly good enough to take advantage of that. But I think City will win, and I think it'll be 2-1.
Yeah, I'm afraid I have to agree with you. I think when I look at it from a neutral point of view, I think the game's going to be one I lost. I think Kevin De Bruyne is the key man. And I actually hate admitting this, but I think potentially we could see one of the biggest scorelines in Champions League finals history. I'm thinking.
No, don't say that, Ray. You're going to put the mockers on it, mate.
Ray was on Sportsbet looking for 8-0.
The next question I've got for Kew, and it links into the final, the Champions League final. Now, I've got a very good friend who works in Italy, and they did see at the Inter Milan training ground 2 double-decker buses pulling in, and apparently that's to do with their tactics. But how are Manchester City, Kew, going to combat Inter Milan defending with 10 men behind the ball? Because we know it's going to happen. And how are they going to combat that? Is it best to go at them from the start and try and get an early goal, or do Man City play them at their own game?
Yeah, you have to play your own game. It's often, sometimes you see when teams get to a final, they get a bit stressed out and they want to change their game plan. Like my philosophy is, the reason why you got there is the way you play. So play the way you're used to play. So if I was City, I would just bring it to them.
Excellent.
One key thing for them will be the pace in which they move the ball. They have to be quick to move the ball from side to side, because that's the way you're going to wear them down. If that's not fast enough, they can cover the gaps, and then it's going to be a hard game.
And can we get a score prediction from you, Kew? What do you believe the score is going to be?
So I think City will win. I think it will be a 3-1, and that's due to an early goal. So once they get an early goal, Inter will have to come out and play, and that will be in City's favor. So I think it'll be a 3-1 for City.
Brilliant, Kew. Brilliant, Kew. Now, I believe that Josip's got one more question for Simon and one more for Kew. So I'll hand it over to Josip.
Thank you, Ray. So Simon, just thinking about the amount of games you've covered and probably the interviews and research you've done over the years, is there one occasion in the world game that stands out the most for you, and why?
That's a difficult one. And I reckon Q's answer would probably be the same, because working in football is such a pleasure and such a privilege that you have so many highlights, and not all of them are actually to do with games. It's about traveling to places that you never otherwise go, and getting a new life experience. I've had plenty of those, traveling to the likes of Lebanon and Kyrgyzstan and Vietnam, Honduras, Uruguay, Argentina. It's been a wonderful life, and I wouldn't change a second of it. In terms of the on-field stuff, I would say there's a couple. First of all, calling an FA Cup final, which I did many years ago when I was at the BBC. Any young English kid growing up of my vintage knows how special the FA Cup is in England. So to be at Wembley to call that game, that was very special for me. And since I come to Australia, I would say the World Cup in 2006, because that was obviously a very special tournament for the Socceroos and for football in Australia. So to have the privilege of calling on live television the first ever goal scored by an Australian at a World Cup, as I did with Timmy Cahill against Japan, Yeah, that's got to be up there as well. But I could probably go on for about 20 minutes with, another 10 or 15.
For different occasions, yeah. It's funny you say about the FA Cup and how special that was to you. My first memory of you as a presenter in Australia was when Man City was in a FA Cup final. And for the life of me, I think it was Man United and Man City. I just can't remember exactly who the opposition was at that time. It was the early days in Australia. And that was my first memory of you. So there you go. I think we're about the same vintage with the Silver Fox thing happening.
Yeah. We're all knocking on, mate.
Thanks for that, Simon. Over to you, Kew. With all the football exposure you've had in life, and you think about the people that have supported you, aside from that immediate inner circle of family and those the closer touch coaches, was there someone just like a layer or two back in the background that was influential in your life, or that you thought, I couldn't have done this without them, even though they weren't immediately impacted in the center of your life constantly?
Ooh. Well, I think what a lot of people don't know while playing, and because you don't see a lot of them, is the assistant coaches.
Yeah.
Like as a player, a lot of work you do and communication is with the assistant coaches. And I think that they don't get enough credit for what they actually do, because not a lot of people know what they actually do. But every one of them has been a great part of my football. Outside of all the big coaches I've worked with, like the assistant coaches that were involved, they were a great help in my football career, and all the extra training, extra sessions, 1v1 sessions, the physiotherapist, the masseur. Like behind the scenes, there's just a big team of people that supports all the players that are not seen on camera or not seen on the pitch, but very valuable as a player.
That's wonderful to hear. Thanks for sharing that, Kew. And if I ever get a chance to be an assistant coach again, I'll remind the head coach that I'm not there just to pick up cones, that there is one-on-one sessions I can help out with too.
100%.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you for them questions, Josip. So, guys, just to finish off, firstly, a big thank you from everyone at Euro Football Star and all our listeners for tuning in. Now, we've already got Kew tied down for next year for London, for Wembley, and I believe he's going to be coming to the Champions League final as a special guest, the Euro Football Star. And depending on where you are, Simon, but the offer's going to be extended. So from next year, if you're available, mate, we'd love to offer you a trip across to London to Wembley and be with us for the Champions League final if you're available, and we can have a chat about that over emails.
That'd be lovely, particularly if City are in it.
I think there's a very good chance. We're planning to do the Europa League final, which is in Dublin. I believe Liverpool are going to be making that one, and then it'll be on to Manchester City for the Champions League final. But a big thank you, Simon, and a big thank you, Kew, and I will say adios from Istanbul.